Hi everyone, Courtney Robinson here, and I appreciate you being here for my finance information. I also do yoga therapy. I'm a solution focused coach and yoga therapist, but I've been a personal blogger and vlogger since 2007. It is not something I've ever done for a living. It is a way for me to brain dump and leave information for my children. I have 6 children. I have 4 that are my children and 2 that are my bonus children through marriage, and I want this information to be out there for them, but it also helps me to share it because it gives me someone to talk to, even if it's a screen. So today I want to talk about to hustle or side hustle. And my husband and I are the king and queen of side hustle. I know there are people out there who've done side hustles and, that have a lot. There's the Financial Panther is a great one. And in the gig economy, side hustles have really taken on a new meaning. But before side hustles were called side hustles, and back when they were called part-time jobs, and I think there is a lot of miscommunication or misunderstanding between what is a side hustle and between what is a side job, and I don't think it really matters. It's also, what is your reasoning for having a side hustle? I have a son who does food delivery, and that is his main job. And he works about 30 hours a week to survive. He's one of these people who he has no debt. He just makes enough money to get by. And I'm not going to say he's perfectly happy with that, but that's who he is. Now, about 20 years ago, I became a yoga teacher before it was cool or popular, and that was my part-time job. And I did that for 8 years before I considered opening a school, or 7 years just I was teaching. I made enough money to pay the groceries. We had 3 kids at home at the time, eventually 4, and it was a great side job for me. I really enjoyed it. It gave me some time away from the kids and out of the house. A lot of times I worked where they had babysitting, so it worked. And then I eventually grew that into my full-time job. And so now I work as a medical yoga therapist, I got more training, I got more skills, I owned a school, I've written books, and that became my full-time job. I met my husband 9 years ago. He was a police officer. He owned a dojo at the time, and on the side he was doing roofing, and his dad was a church builder. His whole family is in construction. He was doing roofing, building fences, and building decks. And after we got together, as that business kind of grew, he had the skills and he had the ability to go out and find the jobs. What he didn't have was the business knowledge about how to run the back end of a business, and I did. And we looked at all of the things he was doing and what was the most profitable, and definitely the construction was the most profitable thing. So over time, we turned that into a business. It's now a 6-figure business, and it is the main bread and butter of our life. Sorry, some dishes just randomly fell. We also now have an Airbnb. And so while I'm going to title this video, Should You Side Hustle or Not, I want to tell you some of the pitfalls and positives. The Airbnb, we built a cabin on our farm. We have a 40-acre, it's a ranch really, because we don't grow food. We have animals that are our pets. And so we built a little cabin for family, and that family member ended up moving, and so we Airbnb it. Now, with the Airbnb, one of the downfalls is it's a brand new and someone flooded it, and we've had to do some repairs, which have eaten up almost all of our profit. It is a lot to keep up with and manage, and then you have strangers coming on your property. So far, everyone has been great, except obviously the people who flooded the house. But for overall, we've had a really good experience with that. It's just one more thing in my life that I have to keep up with. And so the truth is, once I'm completely financially independent, I probably won't do the Airbnb. The roofing has gotten to be so big. My husband is still a police officer. He has 3 years until he retires, that he can, we just can't give it up. It pays all of our day jobs could pay our bills, but they can't get us where we are financially secure in a short amount of time. The roofing will pay off our farm, our ranch, very early, and we will be able to retire and have a good savings earlier than we would if not. So sometimes when you have something that you like to do or you feel creative, like my husband likes to build decks and fences, and that thing grows into a business, you shouldn't always turn your hobbies into businesses. Sometimes it can take the joy out of it. I do love what I do, but having to do it every day can be hard, can be stressful. I'm grateful for it, but I did have kind of a revelation, and I wanted to share this with you. So, years ago, when my kids were small, I worked part-time. I had worked full-time and then went back to work when they were born and took them with me because I was a teacher and my degree was early childhood education. So I worked at a Mother's Day Out. I was an assistant. I was over the whole thing as the assistant. I don't know what you call it, director. And I was also in a classroom. So my kids could go with me for free, but they were sick all the time. And it just almost wasn't worth it. And then I had a small inheritance that gave me about $14,000 a year. And I stretched that inheritance over 4 years and at $14,000 a year and really made it last. Like I just followed super frugal tips like from the Tightwad Gazette. If you're not familiar, I highly recommend reading it. It is still in print and it's an old book from the 90s, but it is amazing. And the book, How to Do More with Less. So I followed those principles. I became very resourceful. And I also cleaned houses on the side when my ex-husband was home. That was also a great way to make some extra money. I've always been a hustler, if you will. I would teach yoga jobs as I got more popular in the world of yoga and had my school. I opened a yoga school. I did that 1 weekend a month. I eventually did that 2 weekends a month for 10 years. And these things ended up becoming my job. Now, what I realized when the shutdown happened, I had kind of gotten to where we were making much better money. I went from struggle to making pretty decent money. And because I was making good money, I could justify having a house cleaner twice a month. I could justify having someone come and do the yard because we were just working all the time. And the amount of money I was making per hour was more than what I was paying someone to do something that I could do at home. So I discovered when we had the shutdown and I didn't want anybody in my home that by cooking all of our meals, not eating out, and we weren't excessive, but cooking all of our meals, being at home, having the energy to cook, having the energy to make meals, having the energy to clean my own house, my husband having the energy to maintain the yard, not maintaining the Airbnb, not having to mess with stocking it with toilet paper, paper towels, the admin fees, the having to mow constantly and weed eat to keep it up, driving less, not wearing makeup, not having to do my hair or wash my hair every day. Every other day I was washing my hair. I was still bathing, don't worry. My husband was doing maintenance on the farm. We weren't having to get help because we didn't want anybody out here. And now, because he works so much, we are constantly having to get help on the farm for repairs and things like that, bush hogging, because he's all day as a police officer, and then early in the morning before he goes to work, lunch hour, and after work, he's working on roofing. And then also car maintenance, not driving less meant we didn't need an oil change during that whole period. We didn't have to do any repairs because I don't think we put a couple hundred miles on the car in 3 months period, where my husband and I, because of our jobs and the constant commuting, he puts 50,000 miles on his car in a year and I put 30,000 on mine. I discovered with that and some other things that by doing things myself, by being home, I was saving $1,100 to $1,500 a month. And I did that by just looking at my expenses and noticing how much less we were spending. So my call to you is, before you go and do a side hustle, and if you can pay someone to do something for you because you can make substantially more, and I don't mean just a few dollars, you need to take in the factor of driving, getting dressed, clothing, all of that. But let's say you're paying someone $10 an hour and you're making $50 an hour, then it makes some sense. But if you're making $15 an hour, it doesn't make sense to pay someone $10 an hour because there's other factors that go into that. I just realized that I don't need another side hustle. And the other thing is, when you're doing a side hustle to build a business, it's very exciting. And if you're a creative type and you start getting the cogs in the wheel going, meaning you get this thing going off the ground and it's just this constant, the kind of creativity goes out of it and it becomes more of this is the job, this is the business I have to do. So as a yoga therapist, while I love our clients, my job is very repetitive. And in the roofing, it's, the calls. My husband doesn't get to go out and build decks and fences anymore because he doesn't have time because the roofing is so much of it. The Airbnb, it was fun to build the Airbnb and decorate it and all of that. But the creativity is kind of gone besides what kind of cool snacks can I put in there today? Or, I found a little bag of Epsom salts for someone to take a, hot bath. It's just... be mindful of why you're doing what you're doing, and is it something that you want to build into a business, or do you have a purpose? Are you trying to pay off debt, or could you possibly shift some of those expenses, do things at home, and free up some money from your current job to pay those bills? You can save substantial amounts of money by learning to do things yourself. It's not always... You don't always need to do a side hustle. If you're trying to build a business and something like that, it's great. But think about in the future, what is this business going to look like 10 years from now? And do I want to keep the cogs in the wheel going, turning? Because, sometimes if you're creative, it's not as much fun once you get there. I like to create things, see them to fruition, and then move on to the next thing. And I did that for years with retreats and all of that, but it was exhausting. And so now I'm at a point in my life, with half a century, that I just really want to retire. I just want to retire and do things at home myself. I want to cook and clean and read and watch movies and go see my kids and go see my mom and take walks and, go check on my parents, my dad, my stepmom, and visit. So I am hustling in the job that I have by picking up extra classes here and there, extra work. My husband's picking up extra work so that we can have more freedom. We are still in the hustle, but it's more to reach a deadline, if you will, but we're not creating new hustles at this point in life. So I just wanted to kind of touch on the side hustle and my experience as being in the side hustle world and creating that into businesses over the past 20 years. All right, I hope this has been helpful content for you. Thank you so much. Bye-bye.